A Navy SEAL accused of war crimes is free tonight after a military judge made an unexpected decision to release him before trial. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Barbara Lee Edwards.
I'm Carlo Cicchetto. We got word of the big new turn in Edward Gallagher's high-profile case earlier tonight.
News 8's Abby Alford is live at Naval Base San Diego with the fast-moving developments and reaction. Abby?
Attorneys for Navy SEAL Edward Gallagher say that he was surprised when at the end of the day the judge released him from confinement. We spoke to his wife and she was about to go into the hearing later that day and she had no idea that moments later the judge would release her husband.
In an unexpected turn, a judge released decorated Navy SEAL Edward Gallagher from pretrial confinement in his murder case of killing an Islamic State prisoner. We spoke to his wife moments before his release outside of court. She had no idea he would be coming home.
My husband is innocent.
Gallagher's attorneys declined an on-camera interview, but on the phone they say they did not see this coming. Towards the end of the hearing about defense motions alleging prosecutorial misconduct involving tracking emails sent to defense lawyers, the judge released Gallagher.
We're talking about dismissing the case entirely due to the prosecutorial misconduct.
The judge said he freed the special operations chief before his murder trial as a remedy for interference by prosecutors, which violated his Sixth Amendment rights. Twitter blew up with supporters. The former Navy SEAL congratulated him. Others say the case is filled with corruption, but some call Gallagher a heartless killing machine. Handfeed tweets, "This is insane." Hashtag Eddie Gallagher's crimes are all well documented by multiple service people who risked their careers to stop his kill frenzy. He betrayed everyone who has served with honor, and the message this sends to our enemies endangers every man and woman in theater now. Mrs. Gallagher posted the news on the Free Eddie Facebook page, saying we will continue to fight as a family.
This is not about truth or justice. This is about him trying to craft together a case and a narrative on this.
The hearing about motions filed by the defense resumes tomorrow at noon. Special Operations Chief Gallagher's murder trial is scheduled for June 10th. Carlo.
Thank you, Abby.